Operating room.
Rebecca Mason was drenched in sweat, her face pale, lips devoid of color, and her hair disheveled and clinging to her face. Every bone in her body ached. It wasn't until she heard the cry of a newborn that she finally relaxed.
At the door of the operating room, Linda Evans took the baby from the doctor, her face alight with joy. She gently touched the baby's cheek with her fingertip.
Little one, remember this. From now on, you are my child. Your mother is Linda Evans.
Rebecca Mason opened her eyes weakly, fighting through the pain, and struggled to get out of bed.
Linda, if you need more, I can get it for you. Just please, give me back my child.
Linda frowned and pushed her away with disdain.
Get lost.
Rebecca, having just given birth, was too weak to withstand the push and fell to the ground. Despite this, she crawled towards Linda, leaving 2 bright red streaks on the floor.
That's my child. Give my baby back to me.
Linda ignored her, seeing Rebecca as nothing more than a pathetic clown. She had everything arranged and left without hesitation.
No! Please!
Rebecca watched her leave, unable to grasp her, the pain in her body intensifying to the point of near unconsciousness. A doctor quickly helped her up.
Miss, you need to get back on the operating table. Your condition is very dangerous. There's another baby inside you.
Summoning strength from somewhere, Rebecca grabbed the doctor's wrist.
It doesn't matter what happens to me. Please, save my baby.
In the last moment before losing consciousness, she heard the cry of another newborn. Ethan lifted his head proudly and took her hand.
Don't worry, Mommy. I'll slow down for you, always.
Rebecca ruffled his hair, her eyes softening.
Let's go home.
Rebecca and Ethan Mason were busy tidying up their new place. Ethan brought her a glass of water as she made the bed, and Rebecca smiled, grateful for her child's presence. But then, her eyes dimmed slightly.
I couldn't save my other child back then. But now, I'm different. I will find my lost child.
Ethan lifted his head proudly and took her hand.
Don't worry, Mommy. I'll slow down for you, always.
This little rascal, always ready with a sweet line. She ruffled his hair.
Let's go home.
Rebecca and Ethan Mason tidied up their new home. Ethan brought her a glass of water as she made the bed.
Here you go, Mommy.
Thank you, honey.
She smiled as she took the glass, never regretting having this child. But her eyes dimmed slightly. She hadn't been able to save her other child back then. Now, she was no longer the same person. She would find her lost child. When Ethan woke up, he realized he was in a warehouse and had been taken. His first thought was that his mommy must be worried sick and he needed to get back quickly. Fortunately, the captors hadn't tied him up, thinking he was just a child. He stood up and saw a small window above. Climbing up, he opened it, but the metal bucket beneath him slipped, making a noise.
Boss, the kid's trying to escape through the window.
No kidding, I can see that. Hurry up and catch him. We can't let our prize slip away.
Just as they reached the door, everyone raised their hands. Daniel Carter's gun was aimed steadily at them.
Who gave you the guts to kidnap my son?
I didn't know he was your son. I wouldn't dare even with 100 lives.
Where's my son?
Feeling the gun pressed against his forehead, the boss trembled even more.
He escaped on his own.
Daniel immediately signaled his men to search.
If anything happens to my son, you'll wish you were never born.
Every time the radio reported that they hadn't found the boy, Daniel's frown deepened, and his grip tightened, making the captors feel death was near. Daniel suddenly noticed the small window and couldn't help but smile. That kid. He holstered his gun and walked into the warehouse.
No need to hide. Come out.
Hiding behind a metal drum, Ethan held his breath. He didn't expect the captors to find him. Reluctantly, he crawled out, stretched, rubbed his eyes, and looked at Daniel.
Who are you?
Daniel walked over, picked him up, and started walking out.
I'm your father.
Ethan struggled with his short legs.
Let me go! I don't know you! Help! Someone's trying to take me!
Daniel, as if seeing his son for the first time, was surprised by how much he talked. He threw him into the car and noticed his arm was bleeding. Grabbing his arm, he asked,
Who did this?
Ethan looked out the window.
My teacher said not to talk to strangers.
Daniel snorted.
Kidnapped and injured, yet still hiding it out of shame.
Ethan's face turned red.
It was just an accident. I got distracted. If you're not with the kidnappers, drop me off at the next corner. I need to go home to my mom. Thanks for saving me, mister.
Daniel's frown deepened. The butler was right. The kid was acting strange today, all for a woman who only saw him as a bargaining chip. But he didn't say any of this.
I'm taking you home now.
They drove straight to the Carter residence. Ignoring Ethan's struggles, Daniel threw him into a room.
Reflect on your actions here.
Soon, a doctor came to treat his wound. The butler, standing nearby, hesitated.
Young master, sir really cares about you. He dropped everything to come back when he heard you were missing.
Don't think you can avoid punishment just because it's your birthday. After dinner, go stand in the corner.
He turned and left, having only come to check on the wound. Since it was minor, he wasn't worried. Ethan found it strange that everyone seemed to know him.
I don't know you. I won't stand in the corner.
He looked at the butler.
Sir, I think you've got the wrong person. I'm not your young master. Can I go home? My family will be worried.
The butler, seeing the young master's playful expression, felt delighted.
Young master, I've taken care of you since you were little. I wouldn't mistake you.
Ethan's hopeful face fell. Looking out the window, he realized escaping from here would be harder than the warehouse. After dinner, Rebecca went to wash the dishes. David Carter wandered around the house. Though it wasn't very big, it was warm and cozy, unlike his perpetually cold home. He envied her real child.
What's this?
Suddenly, he noticed a photo frame on the table. His pupils contracted sharply. How could this child look so much like him? But it clearly wasn't him. In that moment, his mind raced. Rebecca's phone rang on the table. He glanced at the caller ID, it was from his home. After a moment's hesitation, he answered.
Mommy, a strange man has kept me here, insisting I'm his son. Everyone here says I'm their young master. You have to save me.
Are you Ethan?
I am. Who are you, and why do you have my mommy's phone?
It's too complicated to explain now. You pretend to be me, and I'll pretend to be you. We'll meet tomorrow in the back garden.
With a commanding tone, he hung up. The lights went out, and David turned to see his mommy holding a birthday cake, singing softly.
Happy birthday to you!
It was the first time he had such a wonderful birthday. He made a wish before the candles.
I wish this person in front of me is my real mommy. I want to live with her.
Meanwhile, Ethan was deep in thought.
If he guessed correctly, oh my.
He covered his mouth with his small hand. Daniel Carter saw his son squatting on the ground instead of reflecting. He cleared his throat a few times, but there was no response. He walked over and lifted him up.
Let go of me! I have my dignity.
Discuss dignity with me when you're as tall as I am.
Ethan looked up at him, his eyes darting. Suddenly, he remembered his birthday.
Today is my birthday! Where's my gift?
Daniel found this little guy suddenly interesting.
At the door.
Ethan eagerly ran out. There was a huge box at the door. He rubbed his hands together.
Is this all mine?
Seeing Daniel nod, Ethan was thrilled. What could be inside? A plane? A truck? He couldn't wait to open it. But all his wonderful fantasies collapsed the moment he saw the gift. Ethan's mouth twitched involuntarily.
This is your birthday gift to your son?
Read them well. I'll be checking.
You!
At 5 years old, Ethan finally understood what it meant to be so angry you could burst. The next day, Ethan sneaked into the backyard. He crouched silently until a tap on his shoulder startled him. He turned around, his mouth forming an O shape in surprise.
Oh my gosh.
He stood up, even though he had anticipated this moment, seeing it in reality was still shocking. It was like looking into a mirror.
It's really not a mirror.
David Carter, though equally surprised, wasn't as dramatic. He calmly pushed Ethan's hand away.
Idiot.
Ethan circled him.
Looks like I really am handsome.
After a moment of self-admiration, he said,
If we really are twins, why did one of us end up with Dad and the other with Mom, without knowing about each other?
So we shouldn't act rashly. We need to investigate this thoroughly. I suspect.
Suddenly, footsteps approached.
David, what are you doing hiding there? Skipping class now, are you?
The brothers froze. Ethan was about to push David out when he saw him crawl through a hole. Ethan quickly covered it with a flower pot and walked over with his head down.
I'm in a really bad mood. I feel so unhappy. I want to eat a big meal, Dad.
The soft voice tugged at Daniel's heart. He had never been addressed this way before. His anger dissipated, and he stiffly said,
The dining room is ready.
For the first time, Daniel watched his son eat with such joy. Even though he lacked any table manners, Daniel didn't say a word.
Dad, I want to attend Hongyi Elementary School. I'm so lonely at home.
All right, I'll think about it.
In Daniel's memory, this was the first time his son had expressed his feelings of loneliness and unhappiness, and the first time he had asked for something.
I promise I'll still work hard in my classes and become a worthy heir of the Johnson family.
Ethan finally got his wish to switch places with David at Hongyi Elementary School. Back home, seeing his mother busy, he ran up and hugged her leg.
Mommy, you have no idea how much I missed you.
We've only been apart for a few hours. Can't you be away from Mommy for even a moment?
Mommy is my heartbeat. I can't be without you for even a second.
Rebecca, who hadn't heard such words from her son in a while, tapped his nose.
You little rascal.
After dinner, Ethan lay on the sofa while Rebecca massaged his now bulging tummy.
Next time, don't eat so much. Look at your tummy, it's like a big watermelon.
Ethan snuggled into her, feeling happiest by her side. Excitedly, Ethan took a bath and, hugging his little pillow, went to his mother's room. Rebecca gently pushed him out.
Remember, you already used up your turns to sleep with mommy this week. Be a good boy and sleep on your own tonight.
Ethan realized it was all David's doing. His twin brother could be so infuriating. Rebecca received a message early in the morning that she needed to go on a business trip to Harbor City with the CEO immediately. But she couldn't leave her child alone at home.
Hey sweetie, I need to talk to you.
Mommy, do you really have to go? Can't you talk to the CEO again, or maybe quit?
I know it's not ideal, but it's the Johnson family group. It's important.
Ethan's eyes widened.
Mom, that's Dad's company. You should go. Just hire a babysitter. I'll be good. Bye.
Bye, sweetheart.
Turning around, she accidentally bumped into a solid wall of muscle. Realizing it was the CEO, she quickly lowered her head.
I'm sorry, Mr. Carter.
Get ready. You're coming with me to an auction.
The auction was held with great pomp.
I must have the next painting. Just keep raising the paddle.
The bidding was intense.
2 million once, 2 million twice, 2 million 3 times sold. Congratulations to this lady.
Finally hearing the gavel, Rebecca thought she could breathe a sigh of relief. But then the spotlight shone on her.
Thank you.
Holding the painting, Rebecca felt like she couldn't walk properly, cradling it carefully.
Watch out!
Daniel pushed her aside. Just as she was about to stand up, he pulled her down again, and gunshots rang out.
Mr. Carter, what's going on?
Keep shooting, and I'll tear this painting apart.
Hearing the word gun, Rebecca felt her legs go weak. She clung to his coat.
You go first.
Suddenly, a group of people surrounded them.
No one leaves. Hand over the painting.
Mr. Carter, I think if we give them the painting, they'll shoot.
There's no place in this world where I can't leave if I want to.
A group of people surged towards them. Daniel Carter deftly dodged, landing a punch on a heavy-set man's head, followed by a swift kick and a trip, his movements fluid and precise, taking down one opponent after another.
Please, let no one notice me.
Rebecca tried to back out of the crowd slowly. Suddenly, Daniel saw someone standing behind her. He shielded Rebecca with his body, taking a blow intended for her. Time seemed to freeze for Rebecca until she felt warm liquid dripping onto her neck.
Run!
Daniel led her into a narrow alley. Rebecca noticed his face had turned pale, and his steps were faltering. She quickly took off his jacket, hid him among some debris, and put on his clothes herself before running ahead.
Rebecca.
Daniel wanted to stop her but had no strength left. It was the first time someone had protected him, and it was a woman. Rebecca hid in a restroom, washed off her makeup, and changed into clothes she had bought on the way. When she returned to the alley, even though she knew they wouldn't recognize her, she couldn't stop trembling.
You go that way, I'll go this way. Hurry.
Seeing them leave in a hurry, Rebecca confirmed no one was around before moving the debris aside.
Who's there?
Boss, it's me, Rebecca Mason.
Rebecca Mason?
Daniel couldn't believe the stunningly beautiful woman in front of him was her. Suddenly, they heard footsteps approaching. Rebecca's heart tightened. She reached out and wrapped her arms around Daniel's neck, pressing her lips to his. Daniel felt a softness on his lips, his throat moved slightly, and he instinctively held her waist, deepening the kiss. Only when the footsteps faded did she push him away, her face flushed.
Ouch.
I didn't mean to, it was just an emergency.
Rebecca led Daniel in their escape, but noticed more and more people seemed to be looking for them.
Boss, we already gave them the painting. Why won't they leave us alone?
Because the painting was a fake.
Daniel didn't know why he hadn't told her that the people who came later were his men, who had left on his signal. Rebecca was still in shock when she heard an announcement.
Welcome everyone to the final round of our couples challenge. We hope you enjoy spending 24 hours inseparable from your partner.
Before Rebecca could react, her left hand was handcuffed to Daniel's right hand. She chased after the staff, almost tripping, and once again fell into his arms. Ethan lifted his head proudly and took her hand.
Don't worry, Mommy. I'll slow down for you, always.
This little rascal, always ready with a sweet line. She ruffled his hair.
Let's go home.
Rebecca and Ethan Mason tidied up their new home. Ethan brought her a glass of water as she made the bed. Rebecca smiled as she took the glass, never regretting having this child. But her eyes dimmed slightly. She hadn't been able to save her other child back then. Now, she was no longer the same person. She would find her lost child. Returning from a business trip, it happened to be a day off. Her son would definitely be at home. She went to the supermarket to buy his favorite foods, planning to surprise him. She quietly unlocked the door with her key, trying to keep her smile wide.
Sweetie, Mommy's home.
The items in her hands fell to the ground. For a moment, the air seemed to freeze. 3 pairs of eyes stared at each other. She covered her mouth with her hands.
You too!
The 2 little boys exchanged a glance and then walked out. Rebecca felt like she was dreaming, afraid that if she spoke, everything in front of her would vanish.
Mommy, we didn't mean to keep it from you.
Rebecca looked at the child she thought she might never see again. She reached out to touch his face but hesitated, fearing she might scare him. David Carter, feeling nervous, took her hand and placed it on his face.
Mommy, my name is David Carter. Will you like me?
Rebecca hugged him tightly.
Liam, Mommy has never stopped thinking about you all these years, worrying if you're doing well, if you're eating properly, if you're happy.
Ethan, watching them embrace, started to cry too.
Mommy, did you forget you have another child?
Rebecca extended an arm to hug him as well.
You are both Mommy's sons. Mommy loves you both equally.
After listening to her sons explain why they knew about each other but didn't tell her, Rebecca couldn't help but laugh and cry.
Ethan, Mommy didn't tell you about your brother because I didn't want you to miss him every day like I did.
Mommy, no one can take me away from you again. I want to stay with you forever.
Me too!
When Rebecca found out that the children's father was Daniel Carter, she felt a mix of emotions. She hadn't expected things to turn out this way.
Mommy, why did you and Daddy separate? I think Daddy is great. You should marry him so we can all be together.
David didn't say anything, but his big eyes showed he felt the same way. He wanted to see his mommy every day.
Grown-up matters are not for children to worry about.
Rebecca went to her room and found a suitcase. She opened it, revealing children's clothes and toys. David reached out to touch them.
Are these all mine?
I prepared 2 sets of everything. Every birthday gift is here. Look, do you like them? It's just a pity that our little Liam has grown up, and the clothes don't fit anymore.
Mommy, I love them.
Mommy, I didn't get this. Did you make it secretly?
This is a gift from Mommy to me.
Fine, as the older brother, I'll let you have it.
Then Ethan asked a question that had been bothering them both. He blinked at her.
Mommy, who is the older brother and who is the younger one?
The room fell silent for a moment. David's face was expressionless, but inside, he was very nervous.
Ethan is David's younger brother.
Ethan's sunny little face fell as his shoulders slumped.
Liam, as your older brother, I'll protect you.
Mommy, why didn't you have me first? I'm clearly cuter.
The three of them laughed together. In the end, Rebecca held both of them as they fell asleep. Heaven had been kind to her. Her children were back, and they loved her so much, calling her mommy sweetly, like honey on her heart. Today, school let out early. Seeing that the fridge was empty, Ethan decided to go to the supermarket next to the neighborhood to buy groceries. He was a big boy now and could do more for his mommy. If he continued to be lazy, his mommy might like David Carter even more. Unexpectedly, he saw David at the neighborhood gate.
David!
David sneered at him. Even though it was confirmed that he was the older brother, Ethan still refused to acknowledge it.
Watch out!
David's face changed suddenly. He kicked at the man behind Ethan, but the strong man grabbed his leg and threw him to the ground.
Are you okay?
David wiped the corner of his mouth and shielded Ethan behind him.
You go first. I'm the older brother, you have to listen to me.
We'll go together.
The kidnapper, confused by the situation, saw two identical boys.
Neither of you is going anywhere.
David secretly dialed his father while trying to negotiate with the kidnapper.
Who sent you to kidnap us? If it's money you want, let us go, and I'll give you double.
Get them. Don't listen to his nonsense. Tie up both kids and see which one the buyer wants.
David protected Ethan, slowly retreating into a nearby alley.
I'll attack from above, you from below. Be careful.
Ethan nodded, clenching his fists, ready for battle. The brothers coordinated well, and luckily, the alley's narrow space limited the kidnapper's advantage. But no matter how skilled, they were still just children. Soon, they were covered in minor injuries, standing back to back in a defensive stance, but ultimately outnumbered.
What do we do?
Hold on.
Seeing someone sneaking up on Ethan, David threw himself at Ethan, taking the heavy blow himself.
Brother.
An older brother should protect his younger brother.
Ethan, seeing David's weakened state, blamed himself for dragging him down.
This time, I'll protect you.
Suddenly, a group of people appeared, quickly subduing the kidnappers. Ethan didn't know what was happening, but he kept David protected behind him. David, feeling utterly exhausted, knew they were safe now. He looked at his silly brother one last time, feeling a warmth in his heart. When Ethan saw who had arrived, his face lit up with joy. He waved vigorously.
Dad, you're here!
He felt David collapse against him and his expression changed.
Dad, save my brother. He did it all for me.
Daniel Carter saw the two identical children but had no time to think. He picked up David, his face darkening.
Capture them alive and find out who's behind this.
Ethan, after getting his wounds treated, rushed to David's hospital room. Seeing his silent father standing by, he lowered his head and walked over slowly.
Dad,
Daniel had been pondering why his son seemed different. Now he realized they weren't the same person. He should be grateful for having two outstanding children.
What's your name?
Dad, my name is Ethan.
This was the first time he revealed his true identity to Daniel, feeling nervous because his brother was such an exceptional person.
Are you Rebecca Mason's son?
Rebecca returned home but didn't see her son. He had texted her saying he would be home early today. She took out her phone and called Ethan, but there was no answer. Daniel Carter's phone was also unreachable. Panic surged within her.
Ethan, where are you?
She ran out while dialing Ethan's number. Just as her heart felt like it was about to leap out of her chest, the call connected.
Ethan, you little rascal! Do you know how worried I was? You!
Excuse me, ma'am. I'm sorry, but I found this phone in an alley.
Rebecca immediately rushed over and took the phone from a young man.
I didn't see anyone else, just heard the phone ringing as I passed by.
She stood there in a daze, noticing faint traces on the ground. Her hands and feet trembled as she dialed Daniel's number. The mechanical voice on the other end only heightened her anxiety. She took a cab to the Carter residence, where she saw Linda Evans enter but was stopped from going in herself, no matter how much she pleaded. She wandered aimlessly, lost.
What should I do?
For years, it had been just her and Ethan against the world. She had been so happy to find her other child, but now she couldn't even protect the one by her side.
Was Daniel's closeness to me all just a ploy to take back his child?
Meanwhile, in the hospital, Ethan was carefully peeling a fruit.
You've been peeling that fruit for half an hour.
At least there's something to eat.
David watched his clumsy brother, thinking he was quite the fool.
Dad went to find Mom. We'll all be together forever, right?
Ethan placed the poorly peeled apple in David's mouth.
Of course. But I'll go call Mommy to check.
He shook his head like a little adult.
Honestly, we kids have to worry about adult matters.
Just as he was about to leave, bodyguards stopped him at the door.
Sorry, young master. The CEO instructed that you can't leave.
Then give me a phone to call my mommy.
Sorry, without the CEO's orders, we can't give you anything.
Ethan sensed something was wrong. Just as he was about to argue, he was picked up.
Dad, I really hate this.
I hate it when you don't listen and try to sneak out.
I just want to go home to Mommy. She must be so worried.
Daniel set him down and tossed him a phone.
We haven't found out who tried to take you. There's still danger. You can't leave me now.
Ethan nodded eagerly and dialed.
Mommy!
Liam, is that you? Are you okay?
Mommy, I'm fine. I'm with Daddy, and I'm safe. Don't worry.
Do you like your daddy?
Ethan glanced at the tall figure nearby and whispered.
Mommy, even though Dad can be annoying and strict, he's reliable. He treats me well and likes me. But I love you the most.
That's good.
Ethan didn't catch the sadness in her voice and excitedly went to David, showing off their conversation. Daniel watched his sons eagerly talk to her on the phone, clearly fond of her. His pants were tugged. He looked down.
Dad, will Mommy live with us?
Daniel was momentarily stunned, just staring at him. Ethan handed him the phone like it was a treasure.
Mommy wants to talk to you.
Daniel took the phone and, seeing Ethan still nearby, walked into another room.
Hello? What is it?
After a few seconds of silence,
Daniel, I promise not to fight you for Ethan. I just hope you let me see the boys occasionally. They like you. Please take good care of them.
Rebecca, you're dreaming.
I understand.
Rebecca didn't know how she managed to speak. He wouldn't even let her see her children. Luckily, he couldn't see her distress over the phone.
What do you understand? Rebecca, I'll give you one more chance. Bring your household registration to the Civil Affairs office tomorrow.
Ethan lifted his head proudly and took his mother's hand.
Don't worry, Mommy. I'll slow down for you, always.
Rebecca ruffled his hair, smiling warmly at her sweet son.
Let's go home.
Rebecca and Ethan Mason busied themselves tidying up their new home. Ethan brought her a glass of water as she made the bed.
Thank you, sweetheart. Never regretted having you, not for a second.
But a shadow fell over her eyes. She hadn't been able to save her other child back then, and the memory still haunted her. But she was determined to find her lost child. After breakfast, they dropped the two children off at school. The car then returned to the Carter residence.
Get out.
Rebecca was puzzled, staying in place.
Why? Aren't we supposed to go to the office?
She wondered if becoming Mrs. Carter meant she couldn't even go to work.
Because we're on our honeymoon. I'll handle things at the office and come right back.
Watching the car drive away, Rebecca felt annoyed at her unnecessary worries and resolved not to overthink things in the future. Upon returning home, she saw Linda Evans there. Rebecca stepped forward.
Why hasn't anyone offered our guest some tea?
Linda, seeing Rebecca's authoritative demeanor, felt a surge of anger.
Rebecca, are you happy now that you've taken my place as Mrs. Carter?
Not bad.
She accepted the tea from the servant.
If it weren't for your child crying for you every day, Daniel wouldn't have married you so casually.
Rebecca reminded herself that she was now the only Mrs. Carter. Linda's words might not even be true, and even if they were, so what?
I don't care. As long as I'm Mrs. Carter, that's all that matters. How many Mrs. Carters are there in this world?
I knew you married Daniel for money. Leave him now. The only daughter-in-law I recognize is Linda.
Seeing Daniel's mother, Rebecca didn't know what to say. She knew Mrs. Carter didn't like her, making her feel even more awkward.
Mother, I
don't want to hear it. Leave my son. If you're really after his money, I can give you millions.
I don't want money. I just want to be with my husband and my son.
Your son. That's Linda's child. He can only call her a mom.
Linda looked at her provocatively. Rebecca couldn't believe someone could be so unreasonable. Out of respect for the elder, she handed her the tea.
Mother, Daniel isn't here right now. Please have some tea and rest.
But in Mrs. Carter's eyes, mentioning Daniel's absence was a threat.
You'd better leave quickly, or I'll have someone throw you out.
Rebecca's eyes lowered as she discreetly touched the skin where the tea had splashed.
Who dares to throw my wife out?
Daniel, having received a call, rushed back. He pulled Rebecca into his arms, his gaze turning cold, making Linda step back.
Daniel, I'm doing this for your own good. This woman is only after your money. I heard it myself. I wouldn't lie to you.
Mother, haven't you lied to me enough? Even if she is after my money, so what? I don't mind.
Daniel held Rebecca tighter.
Daniel, even if you hate me, I'm still your mother, the one who gave birth to you.
Linda patted Mrs. Carter's hand, signaling her to stop.
Mr. Carter, Mrs. Carter, I'll leave now and won't disturb your lives anymore.
Leave? Not without confessing all your schemes.
With that, bodyguards restrained Linda. Daniel threw a paternity test report and some evidence on the table.
Linda, did you think I, Daniel Carter, am easily fooled? Pretending to be my child's mother wasn't enough. After learning the child was a twin, you tried to kidnap the other one.
Rebecca placed her hand in his, coldly looking at Linda.
Linda, I can tolerate many things, but if you harm my child, I won't let it go.
Daniel, you know I did all this for you. I've loved you for a long time. You can't treat me like this.
Take her away. I don't want to see her again.
Henry, what do you like to eat?
To her surprise, his tastes were the same as her son's. No wonder she wasn't picky, but her son was. It was all inherited.
While marveling at the power of genetics, she pondered how to make him happy and then have a good talk with him, telling him everything, about 5 years ago and her desire to be Mrs. Carter and spend her life with him.
Madam, there's a fire.
Rebecca didn't even notice she had cut her hand. She rushed out immediately. Seeing the flames rising, she cried out.
Is my child inside?
Without waiting for an answer, she dashed forward. Daniel Carter grabbed her.
Are you out of your mind?
My child is inside. I have to save him.
There's no child inside.
Seeing Rebecca still trying to rush in, he shouted.
Bring the young master here!
When David Carter and Ethan appeared, Rebecca calmed down but fainted immediately after hugging them. Daniel carried her swiftly.
Quick, call the doctor.
Ethan, watching his mommy getting in for, silently cried, holding her hand.
Mommy, please wake up soon. I'm fine.
Did something happen to Mommy?
Daniel, also watching his son, wanted to understand why both mother and son were acting so strangely.
Mommy rarely spent time with me before. To support us, she worked several jobs but always came back to check on me. I didn't want her to be so tired, so I told her to lock me in the house. But
what happened?
One day, when Mommy came back, the whole building was on fire. She rushed in, and later, a child's body was brought out. She blamed herself endlessly.
David's eyes reddened. Daniel, though silent, could imagine the scene and the lasting trauma.
How did you get out?
I'm smart. I climbed down the water pipe. Even if I fell, a firefighter caught me.
Despite his casual tone, David felt the pain. Perhaps this was a twin's unique bond.
Whatever you want to do, I'll be there for you.
If I want to be the older brother, will you let me?
Ethan, seeing his brother's troubled look, felt better.
Don't worry, you're my only brother.
Ethan pulled their hands together.
They say surviving a disaster brings good fortune. Now I have the best brother and father in the world. I'm the happiest kid. We'll always be together.
Daniel stroked Rebecca's face. She had always been a good mother, never lying about that.
Tell me more about Mommy. I want to know what I miss.
Ethan, though only 5, had a good memory and storytelling ability. He recounted their tough early days and how things gradually improved. She had once relied on street stalls to support them, but things got better. The room was silent, only the faint sound of breathing.
I know Mommy loves me and my brother. She always made longevity noodles for his birthday.
David held Ethan's hand tighter, feeling grateful he hadn't grown up with their mother, sparing her more hardship. Daniel sat by her bed.
With me here, I'll shield you from everything.
Rebecca's hand moved, and she woke up, clutching her head.
Fire! Such a big fire! It's my fault! I shouldn't have locked Liam in the room.
Daniel pulled her into his arms, resting his chin on her forehead, pained that she hadn't recovered from the fire.
It's okay. Liam is fine. You raised him well.
Ethan, holding back tears, took her hand.
Mommy, I'm okay.
Rebecca came to her senses, murmuring,
It's okay, it's okay.
Then she fell asleep again. The three of them left the room to let her rest. The doctor said her trauma only resurfaced in similar situations, otherwise, she was fine. Daniel's heart sank. Standing by the window, he didn't know what to think. He took out a cigarette he hadn't smoked in a long time, the smoke blurring his vision. When Rebecca woke up, she didn't know how she had fallen asleep. She smelled soup cooking in the kitchen and hurried out of bed, running to the kitchen.
What you need to do now is rest and not worry about anything.
Rebecca instinctively held onto him, their faces so close she could feel his breath on her cheeks. She buried her head in his chest.
Daniel, you know, the past felt like a nightmare to me. But because it was you, it turned into a beautiful dream. That incident brought us together, and we have 2 children now. Daniel, I can say for sure that I love you very much.
Daniel's heart softened. He didn't care about the past anymore. As long as she loved him for the rest of their lives, that was enough. Ethan and David Carter ran out, seeing their dad holding their mom.
Are you two secretly hugging? I want someone to hug me too.
David's lips curved into a smile as he tapped Ethan's forehead.
You're not a 3-year-old anymore.
Rebecca felt embarrassed in front of her sons, her face turning red.
Daniel, put me down.
But Daniel held her tighter, walking over to their 2 kids.
Your mom is shy. From now on, no teasing her. Only I can do that.
Rebecca lightly punched his chest.
What nonsense are you spouting in front of the kids?
Daniel smiled down at her. She probably didn't realize how much he loved her when she acted spoiled. He laid her on the bed, brushing her hair from her forehead. Her face was flushed, her hands nervously clenched.
Don't be nervous. We already have 2 kids.
Rebecca felt she might die of embarrassment if he continued. She had never seen this playful side of him before. His breath on her face made her feel tingly and uncomfortable. She pushed him away.
I'll go get some water.
Daniel watched her retreating figure, her unique scent lingering in the air.
What a pity. He had planned to take a bath with his lovely wife. But there was plenty of time. Tonight, he wouldn't let her off. He wasn't a monk, after all.
Daniel dried himself off and put on a robe. He opened the door, only to be stunned by the sight before him. Ethan, seeing his dad frozen, patted the spot next to him.
Come on, Dad. Sleep next to me tonight. See how much I love you.
Daniel felt he could hear his teeth grinding. He looked at Rebecca.
Are these 2 little rascals sleeping with us tonight?
Our bed is big enough. And it's good for the kids to experience sleeping with their parents. It strengthens our bond.
Daniel had no choice but to lie down. These two boys wanted a sister, yet they were so clueless. He gritted his teeth.
Why tonight of all nights?
We haven't slept together as a family since we reunited.
Is that so? Then I'll make sure to collect the interest you owe me later.
3 months later, the grand wedding of Daniel Carter and Rebecca Mason took City A by storm. Everyone envied the woman who married the CEO of the Carter Group.
In an interview, Daniel responded to this joke. Though his eyes were on the screen, it felt like he was looking into his wife's eyes.
Meeting her has been the luckiest thing in my life. Thank you for coming into my life and making my days less lonely.
Daniel was instantly hailed as the most devoted husband, the national dream man everyone wanted to marry. But now, the men in their family were almost at each other's throats. Rebecca was used to such scenes. She remembered the last time they competed over who could recite more digits of pi, and the time before that, it was a Sudoku challenge. In a family with such high IQs, she often questioned her own sanity. Calmly eating grapes, she had heard that eating grapes would make her future daughter's eyes particularly beautiful.
I can't beat my brother in memory, my dad in intelligence, or anyone in physical strength.
It's just a card game. Why so nervous?
Dad, you sleep with Mom every day. Why do you still compete with us for Sundays? Can you let me win just once?
No way. She's my wife, and I don't want to share her with you guys for even a day. You're all grown up now, long past needing to cling to your mom.
Enough talk! Let's settle this like men.
Each of them drew a card. Ethan's heart pounded as he looked at his card, pouting when he realized he had lost again. Seeing his brother's disappointed face, Daniel handed him his card.
Take good care of Mom and your sister. Don't kick the blankets.
Thanks, brother. Besides Mom, you're my second favorite.
Days passed like this, with occasional chaos and small moments of joy. But today, the brothers rushed to the hospital right after school. Seeing their father already waiting, they ran even faster to the door. As soon as the doctor came out, the three of them crowded around.
Mother and baby are safe. A healthy boy, 7 pounds 8 ounces.
For a moment, their expressions turned strange. The poor third son was already being disliked right after birth.